Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 88 of our 100 days of EDH. Thank you all for joining in. I know this is a big weekend for, well, no, it's not. By the time that y'all hear this, the invitational will already be over, so never mind. Anyway, Time Spiral came out in October of 2006, and it was different. It's one of my favorite sets of all time. It had 301 cards in Time Spiral proper. It had 80 rares, 80 uncommons, and 121 commons. However, in every single pack, there was a time-shifted card, and how they marked it was the expansion symbol was purple. Now, this subset had 121 cards in it, and they were all the same rarity. We called them purple rarities, we called them time-shifted, whatever. But anyway, all of them, they're the same number of squires, Time Spiral squires out there as there are Time Spiral serrated arrows or achromas. So it added, so really, Time Spiral gave that format, that standard format at the time, 422 cards. But I will not be covering here today because we're doing EDH set reviews. I will not be covering any of the time-shifted cards because presumably we would have already covered those in previous sets. So, because they are all, in fact, reprints. Now, this was the 40th expansion, and as I said, nostalgia-based, they did a lot, I think they tried to hit every mechanic they used. It was crazy. Anyway, let's get to it. Angel's Grace is just an amazing... I love the fact that it has Split Second. It's the first card we're talking about. Split Second was introduced in Time Spiral, and a lot of people say that this is back in original Magic. We had instants and interrupts, and there was a lot of confusion about it. But Split Second is, a lot of people say, is the fixed interrupt. It just happens. Not only can it not be countered, nothing else can be added to the stack while a Split Second card's on there, so it's going to resolve. So this one here, you play Angel's Grace, you can't lose the game this turn, and your opponents can't win the game this turn, so it's like a one-turn platinum, okay? Until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. This is one heck of a combo piece. There are a lot of... And besides that, just the art here, you'll notice on all the Split Second cards, there's like a slash going through them. Like here, it's, almost light and dark. But Angel's Grace, heck of a card. Celestial Crusader has flash. The next deck that y'all will see, you may have already seen it, deck number 409, Ifara, the God of the Polis, has this in there. I really like it. Now, 4 mana, 2/2 flying, flash, Split Second, it's happening. And then other white creatures get 1/1. So, yeah, it does help out your opponent's white creatures, but if we are playing mono white, or in her case, white blue, where most of that deck, most of the creatures are white. Some of them are white and blue, but, it's a good redundant anthem. Chrono Savant, 6 mana, 5/5 giant. Now, for 2 mana, you can bring it back from your graveyard to play to skip your next turn. I think Chrono Savant is... Okay, yeah. The reason why I'm talking about it is, in my mind, I haven't actually started putting cards in sleeves yet for the deck, but in my mind, I'm building a deck where I don't want to take a turn. And this is probably going to be one of those cards in the deck that let me sacrifice my next turn. Yeah, that sounds so weird, I know. Evangelize. Now, this is buyback, of course, an old returning mechanic. This can be awesome because there are times... Now, gain control of target creature of an opponent's choice that he or she controls. I would have to look up the Oracle text here and see who actually targets the creature. If the spell gain control, it sounds like the spell targets it. But there again, opponent's choice. The reason why I'm asking is from hexproof reasons. Yeah, I don't think you can take a creature with hexproof. It's never really come up in a game for me. Now, 5 mana and 4 to buy back, so that's 9 mana to keep doing this. I've never seen it bought back. I've certainly never bought it back. Because generally, you only need to cast it once. It's great against the Voltron commanders where they just go tall with one creature, or, Aura decks or things like that. Great against those, as long as it doesn't, have the shroud of the hexproof. Magus of the Disc. Now, this block, Time Spiral block, we had Time Spiral, Planar Chaos, and Future Sight. And what they did was they went back and more or less they made the Magus cycle. That it was Magus of like this. The Time Spiral took old artifacts and turned those artifacts into Maguses, creatures that had those abilities. And they were strikingly similar. This one is Magus of Nevernal's Disc. Nevernal's Disc cost 4 mana, came into play tapped. You spent 1 and tap it to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And they put it on a 2/4 human wizard body. We will see these probably till the end of time. We will see the Magus cycle continue to grow because they have done it. They did 5 in Time Spiral, 5 in Future Sight, and 5 in Planar Chaos. I got those out of order, I know. And they've released several more in Commander products. Mangara of Corondor. Now, 3 mana, 1/1. You tap to remove it from the game and target permanent. So, you tap to exile her and another permanent from the game. I built this deck not too long ago. How I built it and how, honestly, it's kind of a narrow, as the CCO boys say, it kind of suffers from the Zada effect. There aren't that many cards you can use to abuse Mangara. Is Blink. Because you tap, you put her ability on the stack, you blink the card, it comes back, it's a new permanent, and just the other target permanent gets exiled. That's the shtick with this one. So you want all of the, what is that, 1,000-year elixir and the, Momentary Blink also in Ifara. I'm telling you, I use more cards probably out of Time Spiral block than any other block ever. 2 mana. Hey, we were just talking about Blink. Here we go. And it has the flashback. Now, this is technically Azorius color identity because it does have a white and a blue mana symbol on there, so you got to have both. So, Ifara is all about that Blink. So, Restore Balance. Now, yes, that's right. There's no mana cost on it. This was a cycle of 5 cards that they did without mana cost, so they can't be cast, to pretty much push the suspend mechanic. Now, the suspend mechanic is you can pay the suspend cost, exile it with that many time counters on it. During your upkeep, a time counter comes off. When you remove the last one, it goes onto the stack. It gets cast. So you do have an opportunity to counterspell it. Creatures that come into play from suspend have haste. So this one is a balance, the old card that got banned in Commander. Each player chooses the number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the fewest player, then sacrifices the rest. They do the same, sacrifice creatures and discard cards in the same way, yeah. So, I love the throwback to the art, too, because the art is really close. Now, Sarah Avenger, I've got one of these over in the sorting tray, and I've been trying to put it in a deck for a while. I'll probably have to wait till the Sarah Planeswalker comes out, and surely there will be another Legendary Angel there somewhere. But this is, I like it. 2 mana, 3/3 Flying Vigilance. Sounds awesome, but you cannot cast it during your first, second, or third turns of the game. Now, for us in our format, we tend to, after that turn 3, so turn 4 is the earliest possible time that we can cast it. Now, we can cheat it into play by other means. Ether Vial, this Joker out on turn 2, whatevs. But, well, no, because you play Ether Vial on turn 1, turn 2 gets countered. Yeah, anyway, it's not that much sooner. You can cheat it into play otherwise, but if we're cheating creatures into play, do we really want to be cheating a 3/3 into play? I just can't find that many homes for her, because by turn 4 in our format, we're dealing with stuff that's a lot bigger than 3/3 Vigilance, but it's an amazing card. Tivadar of Thorn. Now, just about every single card in the set is a throwback of some way. Now, this was a throwback to a card from the Dark. 3 mana, 2/2 Human Lord, first strike, pro red. When it comes into play, destroy target goblin. There was a white card in the Dark that was Tivadar's Crusade that destroyed all goblins. Ancestral Vision is the blue suspend card that has no mana cost, and it was the poster child. It's the one that everybody played, everybody wanted. In lots of formats. Now ours, yeah, there are ways to, of course, cheat these out. You can cascade into them now, and there's lots of ways you can do it. But I've never had a problem with just suspending it for one and waiting. But it's mighty slow. It's mighty, mighty slow. Ancestral Recall, this is not. Brine Elemental. Oh, man. Brine Elemental is half of what is referred to as the Pickles Lock. Now, 6 mana, 5/4, morph for 7. When it's turned face up, each opponent skips his or her untap step. Now, here's one of the beautiful things. A lot of times, these cards from years past don't really translate that well to multiplayer, but this one does. Each opponent skips their untap step. So, you played it face down for 3, and then you paid the morph cost, which was 1 more than actual casting it, to do this. Or you could not, and just cast it and put it on, as a 5/4. We'll get to the reason why you would do that in a second. Clock Spinning. These are in order, so that's why I didn't put them, that's why they're not side by side. Clock Spinning, buyback here again, returning mechanic. I love this. Choose a counter on target permanent or suspended card. Remove that counter or put another one of it on it. This, I use Clock Spinning in a lot of decks. Clock Spinning is good if you are trying to get multiple value out of your divinity counters from whatever gave you the divinity counter, from +1 counters, -1 counters, target permanent or suspended card. Yep, those are loyalty counters. Draining Whelk is a 6 mana 1/1 flash flying counterspell. Yeah, that's why it's 6 mana. It's a counterspell, and you get 1/1 counters on it, where the spell's converted mana cost. Now, this is one of those cards that's real easy to get greedy with. You'll let stuff slide that's 3 and 4 mana because you're hoping for that big payoff, especially if you see there's 7 CMC General over there. But, at this point, you're holding up 6 mana. They should be expecting something. Ixidron is an illusion. 5 mana. Comes into play, you turn all other non-token creatures in play face down. They're 2/2s. They're morph creatures, essentially. Its power numbers each equal number of face down creatures in play. So, obviously, this begs for the morph deck. There are a lot of people that build like Animar in morph, because when you pay the morph cost, it's colorless and you can reduce it. Animar can reduce it by 3, and therefore you just play morphs for free. And Ixidron is, kind of good in that scenario. Magus of the Jar. This is the Magus of the Memory Jar. 5 to cast and then you tap to Memory Jar. Each player exiles their hand. They get a new hand of 7 cards. Now, this one, and of course, at the end of the turn, everybody discards that hand. They go back to the original hand. Now, Memory Jar was awesome because you could tap it, sack it the same turn you played it because it was an artifact. Magus of the Jar, not so much. It's sick. And while it seems symmetrical, if you've never played with the Jar or the Magus, it's not. Because you're going to do this at the most opportune time. A lot of people just use Jar in like Nekuzar decks or stuff like that to just make them draw and discard. Because you're prepared for it, you've probably used all the cards in your hand and you're just using this to fill it up again. Even only temporary, but that's okay because the idea is you're going to play that hand. Mystical Teachings. Now this one I use to this day. 4 mana instant, search your library for an instant card or a card with flash. I like that distinction. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And of course it has 6 mana flashback. One of those is black, so this is a Dimir card for your blue-black decks. Ophidian Eye. Watch out, Niv-Mizzet. Now, this is the one you want for Niv-Mizzet. 2 generic and a blue, flash. So that's also important. So you have to commit your Niv-Mizzet out there at sorcery speed unless you're, oraying it out there. But whenever enchant creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Now, some of these cards that combo with Niv have to draw cards. And you know what? The game starts off with your opponent's life total being more than your total library. So, we can't, if you're planning on using this to kill the table, you've got to wait till some damage is done. In the early game, probably that aggro player is your best friend, even if you end up taking some damage with it as well. How it works is, of course, Niv-Mizzet says whenever you draw a card, you deal a point of damage, and then it just loops back on itself. It's beautiful, beautiful card. Paradox Haze. Now, they printed this. Enchanted player has an additional upkeep step. So you would untap, upkeep, draw. It doesn't sound like much. However, the reason why they printed this was because of the suspend card, so that you could speed up your suspend twice as fast. However, I've also noticed an offensive way to use this. If somebody's is playing a cumulative upkeep card or theme, it's not quite amazing to, I hate to use the word waste this to kill their cumulative upkeep cards because they'll age twice as fast. But now, I use this in a lot, if I have a lot of cards in a deck that says during your upkeep, do X, do this beneficial thing, well then I'm probably going to want to have 2 upkeeps. Shadow Slivers. Slivers were back. The entire block had slivers. They ribboned them all throughout. That is one of the reasons why we don't see slivers very much anymore. All of the slivers from Wrath are now on Dominaria, but when we went to Dominaria, we did not get slivers. And the reason why is R&D told us that slivers occupy a ton of space in a set. Because to do slivers right, they're going to have to do a cycle at common, a cycle at uncommon, and they're going to want to do a cycle at rare. And probably a big one on top of that. So it just occupies a lot of card set real estate. But anyway, this one was one of the slivers I picked out because it is cruelly efficient. All slivers have shadow. Now, shadow, y'all remember back from the Tempest block. Yeah, that's it. Tempest block was the only block to have shadow. Well, of course, and Time Spiral. Because Time Spiral brought back all the mechanics. But to make your team, your deck, your tribe have shadow, strong. Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir. Now, I opened this card, and the first thing I thought of was Michael Jordan. And if y'all go way, way back into my archives, you will see Teferi Mage of Chicago. Because I had a good friend of mine alter it to where this was Michael Jordan. Anyway, I'm an old guy. Michael Jordan is, I don't even follow basketball, but he's the man. Anyway, 5 mana, 3/4 flash. Legendary human wizard. Creature cards you own that aren't in play have flash. This means if this is in play, and maybe Teferi's not your commander has flash because it's not in play. It doesn't say from your hand, so that's awesome. Or from your deck, from anywhere. And your opponents can only play spells at sorcery speed. And that is outstanding. This guy is amazing. This was the first time we saw Teferi proper. Now, we saw Disruptive Student back in Tempest when he was a kid. In this instance right here, I know this video is going to go long. We're at 21 minutes and we're still in blue, but let me tell you a little bit about Teferi and the story. And I know I don't do that a lot, but this story, Teferi was a student at the Tolarian Academy. I'll try to broad stroke this as much as possible. When, the invasion happened and it came to Teleria, everything went to, crazy. And Teferi had a spark. He did not know it. Typically, most of the time, no one knows they have a spark until it's ignited. And Urza was messing around with time on the Tolarian island. He was making like war machines and war weapons in slow time so that he could make them fast enough they would come out in normal time, at just like one every couple seconds. Well, when the island got bombed, basically, all these random, these controlled time pockets ruptured and just started floating around. A piece of a building, a piece of flaming wood, hit Teferi and caught him on fire, and he fell back. In normal time, he burned for just a few seconds, as far as the witnesses saw. He fell back into a pocket of slow time and burned for years. And that's what ignited his spark. Now, that's just one of those epic stories I'm like, whoa. And he would go on to do all that stuff that we've already talked about. But anyway, Teferi. And still, to this day, 2019, he's still his current card rocking. I don't think they've ever made a bad Teferi card, even the Planeswalker deck when I play. Trickbind. Did I miss one? No, I didn't miss one. Trickbind. 2 mana split second. It's happening. Counter target activated or triggered ability. If a permanent's ability is countered this way, activated abilities of that permanent can't be played this turn. So, this to simplify it, I activate my Mimnarch. You Trickbind it. Well, I can't Mimnarch for the rest of the turn. I can't use those abilities. So, one of my favorite things to do is to Trickbind effects that require the sacrificing. Y'all remember that memory jar? Or the Magus of the jar? Tap to sack it. Well, I'm going to counter that activated ability. And since you sacked it, I don't really have to worry about it after this turn. Vesuvian Shapeshifter. Hey, y'all remember one time we talked about this card named Brine Elemental? The reason why they call it Pickles Combo is because you brine a cucumber and make it a pickle. Anyway, there's the groceryman enemy. You played the Brine Elemental face up because you're just balling and want to represent like that. And then you play the Vesuvian Shapeshifter. Now, you play it face down as a morph creature for 3, and then you spend 2 mana to morph it up. And as Vesuvian Shapeshifter comes into play, or is turned face up, you may choose another creature in play. If you do, the Shapeshifter, until it's turned face down, it becomes a copy of that creature. Now, it unmorphs as a copy of that creature, so it's going to unmorph as a copy of Brine Elemental. And then, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to turn this creature face down. So what you're going to do is you're just going to keep flipping it every turn, back and forth, morphing and unmorphing. That way, each time you're going to copy this Brine Elemental and lock your opponents out of an untap step forever. Now, more than likely, you have already tapped. You've played spells to tap all their lands or tap all their creatures, and you're just having a field day with whatever you want to do because you still get to untap. Yes, this was a tournament combo. It is a decent, I mean, both are not only in the same set, but in the same color. So, it's hard to, if you've got that deck where you just need more time, Pickles Lock might do it for you. Walk the Eons. 6 mana, take an extra turn. Oh, and if you want to buy it back, you can cut yourself off at the knees or sacrifice 3 islands. Which there are some games I have done that. If you just, I have done that in instances where I just needed one more turn. Just one more turn to win. And, there it is. Call the Netherworld. Now, I used this a bunch when Future Sight came out and gave us Corlash, but return target black creature card from your graveyard to your hand for 1 mana. But it has Madness of 0, so all of those cool cards like Cathartic Reunion and Faithless Looting and drawing and discarding cards, yeah, I'll discard this one and just get another creature back. Yeah, this is good, right? Now, Curse of the Cabal. Now, this is a very big disparity here in between the 10 mana cost of the sorcery and the 4 mana cost of the Suspend 2. So you're like, well, I could just suspend this for 4 and in a couple turns it'll happen. Well, but here's the thing. They see it coming. This one was costed because 10 mana out of the blue, target player sacrifices half their permanents. Whoa. Now, it also has that cool little clause of at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they can sacrifice a permanent to add 2 time counters on it. So there's that. But I've always found, now granted I have suspended it way more times than I have just cast it, because most of the time when you suspend it, the object is to get them to sacrifice permanents to put counters on it, because nobody wants you to tell them to lose half their stuff. Demonic Collusion. Now this is a powerhouse tutor. 5 mana tutor. It's a tutor. Any card tutor. But a buyback of discarding 2 cards. Now, there's so many advantages in our format to discarding cards, to filling up a graveyard, to whether it's madness creatures or you're discarding flashback cards, or you're just discarding good old-fashioned creatures because you're going to reanimate them. Or, I don't know, maybe you got a Mortal Kombat strategy going, who knows. But this is way more powerful than it looks. And yes, I know at 5 mana, it does suffer from like the Diabolic Tutor effect, where more than likely, that's all you're doing that turn. And just a speed play tip, know what you're going to get before you pick up your deck to tutor. We play a format where it entails crazy long games, and no one wants to concede a game. No one wants to be, oh, man, I got to be at work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's midnight. Nobody wants to do that, so I try to do everything I can to speed play as much as possible. And if I don't know, well, first off, if I don't know what I'm going to get with a tutor, I don't cast it because I don't need it. I don't need to waste the tutor if I don't know what I need at that moment. Anyway, random rant. Dread Return. Speaking of reanimation, it's a 4 mana sorcery. Not that matters. Return target creature card from your graveyard to play. The flashback cost is sacrifice 3 creatures. So, more than likely you've dumped this in your graveyard, and this was a huge dredge card back then. I don't know if it is now. I haven't followed that deck in forever. But you sacrifice 3 Narcomoebas to get the whatever back, because your Narcomoebas were free. Anyway, Dread Return. It is a great card for sacrifice style reanimation decks. I love it. Endrick Sar, Master Breeder. 5 mana 2/2. Whenever you play a creature spell, you put X/1/1 Thralls into play, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. When you control 7 or more Thralls, they overtake him. You got to sacrifice him. So, the object here is to always have 6, or no more than 6. There are many ways to do that. These are 1/1s. You can totally go the Skull Clamp route and just kind of pick them off to draw cards. That way you're never at above that 6. You can try to min-max it to where you have exactly 6 and go, Thrall Tribal and maybe run a coat, although that's really sketchy. There's a ton of ways to do it. I like the Skull Clamp way myself. Fallen Ideal. Now, this is the reason why I have this in there is because it does work incredibly well with sacrifice style decks. You can you tack this onto a creature and it becomes a Fallen Angel. Now, those horns, the crown of horns he's putting on the other person there, that is remarkably reminiscent of the original art of the Fallen Angel. And Fallen Angel was a 3/3 flyer that had flying. Of course, yeah, that's redundant. Sacrifice a creature. This creature gets +2/+1 till end of turn. But it had a cycle. Oh, by the way, Time Spiral had 20 cycles in the set. 20. When this is put into a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand. So if they kill the creature that this was on, you got it back. Limdol. We got actual factual Limdol. 7 mana 4/4 legendary human wizard. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play, you may pay 2. So a generic and a black. If you do, you get it. It's now a zombie. And then he regenerates zombies. So I think I use this as just mono black removal. I don't know that I have any proper creatures in the deck. Well, beyond things like Shriek Maw or whatever. It is just a removal deck. The deck scales nicely because the better creatures your opponents have, the better you're going to have. And if you'll read that ability, you know what's missing in all of those 6 lines of text? The word target. So you can get the hexproof. You can get the shroud. You had to board wipe them off the board, but it could happen. Living End is the black suspend 0 card. It is Living Death. You trade all cards or all creatures in play for all creatures in graveyard. They have to word it all wonky. You exile the ones that are in play, and then you put the ones that But anyway, it suspends for 3. This is a huge combo piece since we got Cascade. Magus of the Mirror. Mirror Universe was the original card here, and it was a 6 mana artifact from way back. Legends, I do believe. And it did the same thing here. You tap, sack it to exchange life totals. So, Mirror Universe was the first card that ever did that. And Magus of the Mirror, there wasn't many. Magus of the Mirror maybe own up there too. But here again, it does suffer from the Magus problem of it's sick. Stronghold Overseer. This card is hilarious. Oh my god, it's so funny. 3 generic, black for a 5/5 flying with shadow. For black, creatures with shadow get pretty much fire breathing to end of turn, the whole team. And creatures without shadow get -1. Now, the reason why this card is so funny is it has 2 wonderful evasion mechanics. It has flying and shadow. Oh, by the way, trivia. Do you know how many creatures have both flying and shadow naturally? You're looking at it. This is the only one. That ability is really strong too in a heavy black mana deck, big mana. But it's not bad. I've used it and, I've used it offensive and defensive to, make me take less damage. Sudden Spoiling is a blowout. A 3-mana split-second instant. Creatures target player controls become 0/2 and lose all abilities. They're going to lose that hexproof. They're going to lose that indestructible. They're going to lose that slap you in the face. And they're just going to be 0/2s. This is... I use it most of the time as a one-sided wrath because they're going to swing at you. There's the point where they know they've got you. They, all their creatures maybe have trample or flying or you can't block them or whatever. And they know they've got you. The dude math says they've got you. And you sudden spoiling, block them all, kill them, and they are blown out. It is so good. Tendrils of Corruption. This is in here for funny reasons. I like it. It's a 4-mana instant. I mean, it's a throwback to the old Corrupt card. I like the fact that it is an instant. It does only hit creatures. It deals X damage to a creature, and you gain X life or X number of swamps you control. I played a lot in Swamps Matter, and I think I have not opened my Magic Online account in 3-4 years or more. And as I remember, when I drafted a ton of Time Spiral. My Magic Online account may have several hundred of these cards. Anyway, Barb Shocker. 4-mana 2/2 insect, trample haste. That's balling, right? Whenever it deals damage, not combat damage. So you put a bow on it, turn it into a plinker. That player deals or discards all the cards in their hand and then draws that many. So here again, this sees a lot of play in cards where you want to force draw for like Underworld style effects. Bogarden Hellkite was the preferred dragon in the Dragonstorm decks of the time. Now at 8 mana for a 5/5 flash flying, that's not amazing. But it also deals 5 damage when it comes into play, and you can pretty much divide it however you want to. So that's kind of sort of better than haste because you get to spread it out. But it's still kind of haste because you get the 5 damage when it comes into play. It just isn't attacking. So, but it's a little better. Empty the Warrens. Storm they brought back. Oh. Storm is one of those bittersweet mechanics for me. I love it, but I recognize that it's way too powerful. This was at a time, now keep in mind, we had Seething Song from Mirrodin, and we had Desperate Ritual from Kamigawa block, and we just kept getting rituals. So, here we are. You play all the red rituals, you storm off into goblins, and probably play a mass hysteria and go nuts. Or at least that's how I built my legacy, the one legacy deck I played in the legacy tournament. Grape Shot is another card in that deck. Grape Shot's amazing as well. We have a tendency in our format to be able to create casting loops, whether it be, I don't know, crazy buybacks for cheap or free or whatever. And there's a lot of scenarios that just kind of happen where you're like, I can play this card infinitely, but it doesn't really do anything. Well, you know what? Grape Shot's got you back. Greater Gargadon is another one of those interactive suspend cards. So for 10 mana, you can cast the 9/7 Beast, period, in a story. You can suspend it for 1 mana, so you can do this on turn 1. And there was many games that it happened that way. You sacrifice an artifact, creature, or land, or remove a time counter. So, I mean, yeah. Ib Halfheart, the Goblin Tactician. 4 mana, 3/2, legendary Goblin Advisor. Hey, it's an advisor, y'all. But whenever another goblin you control becomes blocked, boom. It dies and deals 4 damage to each creature blocking it. You can sack 2 mountains to put 2 tokens into play. which those are two different and very good abilities. Now, obviously, if you're trying to go the Valakut route, you're not down with sacrificing your mountains like that. But to get the goblin tokens, I don't know. It seems like there's better ways to make goblin tokens. But the turning all your goblins basically into grenades is, or close to grenades. It's not bad. Ignite Memories is one of my favorite Storm cards, simply because its power level depends on your opponents. If they've got that one Blightsteel Colossus in their hand waiting on that last mana, ooh, it's a bad time. Jaya Ballard Taskmage. Now, rumor has it this was the prototype for Planeswalkers. I don't know how true that is. It did have 3 abilities, but I know Planeswalkers went through several iterations, but this was her actual human Spellshaper form. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care for the card. It's a Spellshaper, so they brought that back. So every ability of hers requires discarding a card. Now, the last ability, she kills herself because it deals 6 damage to each creature. Yeah. Magus of the Scroll. A scroll, Curse Scroll was the artifact that this was made after. And if this seems broken to you, it's probably because it is. The scroll did cost 1 and 3 to activate. You name a card, reveal a card at random from your hand. If it's a named card, you deal 2 damage to a target. So you waited till you had no cards in hand, and then you just went that way. Yeah. Norn the Wary is a big time mono red commander. It operates off of just blinking in and out and coming into play effects. Reiterate. Buyback Fork. Sign me up. I don't know for 6 mana, but it still sounds cool. Rift Bolt was the suspend lightning bolt. You could spend 3 to do it or just 1 to suspend it. Pretty good. Volcanic Awakening. Now, I don't know who thought destroy target land storm was a good idea, but I thought it was just super overpowered at the time. This is uncommon even, but you know what? Never seen it cast. But I just wanted y'all to know that it's out there. Now I got to play with it, don't I? Wheel of Fate is the red. It's a Wheel of Fortune, and if you look at that art, it's actually the Wheel of Fortune, and from the Wheel of Fortune art from ABUR, and it suspends. We're into green. Aspect of the Mongoose. Enchanted creature has Shroud, and then when this dies, it comes back. So that's a really good aura for your aura decks. Fungus Sliver turns all slivers into fungal or fungus fungusaurs. Fungusaurs. They kind of did that style throwback as well. Gemhide turns them all into Birds of Paradise. Or tap for any color. They don't have flying, but this sliver here is what made the deck work. Hypergenesis is the green version of the no cost suspend, and it was just I had it in my mind. Old card. Yeah, everybody just starts taking turns plopping permanents into play for the free, and Eureka, and yeah, it's really strong. Crows and Grip. Now I don't have to tell you all about Crows and Grip. This is probably one of the pinnacle, or maybe the pinnacle, artifact or enchantment removal spells in our format. Split second, not getting countered. Get out of here. Get that artifact enchantment mess out of here. It's gone. The only way they could improve upon this is if they did one that exiled it. I have, like y'all, I have kind of, we evolve in our deck building processes, and as we evolve as better players, and we're all kind of leaning more toward exile effects now than destroy, since we know that the graveyard is just a second hand. Magus of the Candelabra. Now, this was the Candelabra of Tawnos. Mage? Yeah, okay. Did the exact same thing. Although Magus, this one I play. I do. Primal Force Mage. Now, Primal Force Mage is really good with a card in Future Sight we'll get to called Nakata War Pride. But whenever another creature comes into play or your control, it gets +3/+3. So there are lots of applications here. Nakata War Pride is the one that kind of warmed up to my heart. But anything that puts haste creatures into play, this is automatically going to give them a free giant growth. And haste matters so that you can swing with it because, you kind of want that. Scrib Ranger is one heck of a combo piece. 2 mana 1/1 flying fairy flash pro blue. You can bounce a forest to your hand to untap target creature, but you can only do it once each turn. Search for Tomorrow. Woo. Suspended on turn 1. Man, that's living the dream. Good clean living right there. Spectral Force is why you want the little fairy. Because for 5, this one I thought would be everywhere in Commander. Black is such a popular color. 5 mana, 8/8 trample. Through Magic's history, they have this thing in green with 8/8 tramples. I really like it. I need to actually do an 8/8 trample deck. I'm sure there's an 8/8 trample legend. Yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, when it attacks, if defending player controls no black permanents, it don't untap to your next turn. So you play the little fairy to untap it if they just don't have black permanents. But in Commander, you have 3 opponents, and so more than likely, brought back the Thallets and the fungus to make. Now I chose this one. It is 4 mana for a 4/4. That is actually above the curve for Thallets now. I mean, the old Fallen Empire's Thallets, we didn't. Actual Thallid was good. But at the beginning of your upkeep, this one you put a spore counter on each fungus you control. Every other one just puts one on itself during upkeep. Now this one puts it on your team. So odds are your regular Thallid's putting one on it, and then your Spore Sower's putting another one on it. So it rams you up twice as fast. Squall Line is an instant hurricane. That's it. But it is totally worth that extra green mana. Stonewood Invocation. Now this one is way to my heart. Because y'all know I love me some combat tricks, especially giant growth effects. Notice again the split second with the line dividing the art. Most of the time the lines were diagonal too. 5/5, it gets +5/+5, and can't be the target of spells or abilities. So nice. Thelon of Havenwood. 2 green for a 2/2 legendary elf druid. Each fungus gets 1/1 for each spore counter. Now that's your fungus commander right there, especially with the previous one. Unyaro Bees. This was obviously a throwback to Killer Bees. Triple green for 0/1 flying. And now there was another card. I know it was in Portal, and I think it was in Starter. That was Unyaro Beasting. That was 4 mana to deal 2 damage to a target. So, by the way, the bees, Unyaro or Killer Bees, if you are in a heavy green mana deck, maybe you're playing Azusa, maybe you're playing Elf Ball, whatever, consider the bees because it is a good flying blocker that can, with enough mana, can just kill or live through anything. Verdant Embrace. Now, I like this. It is an aura that turns a creature you control into Verdant Force. Yeah. It gets +3/+3, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you get a sapling. Really good in your token decks. Drownu Lich Lord. 5 mana, 3/3 legendary zombie lord. Now, if damage will be dealt to Drownu, you got to sacrifice that many permanents. Ouch! But tap, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback. So, you really want to protect this guy from damage. There are a lot of... I'm going to reserve my comments for it because I have not built this deck yet. And I don't honestly know how I'm going to build it. But it's a good deck. I've seen... Well, I say it's a good deck. I've heard it's a good deck. Ith. Y'all remember Maze of Ith from the Dark? Yeah, this is actually Ith. 7 mana, 3/5 vigilance. Love the vigilance. So he can get in there for commander damage, and you can use his Maze of Ith ability. Oh, and he also suspends for the cheap. So that's nice. Kurvak the Mercilist is a beater. Oh my gosh. 7 mana for a 5/4. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, it doesn't hit you, deals damage to target creature or player equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Yeah. This is it. Just punishing people for just playing the game. Mishra Artificial Prodigy. Now, there is a very specific build for this commander. 4 mana, 4/4. It sounds like he's unplayable, but due to some weird rules interactions and couple card combos, it is actually playable. You play an artifact, you can search your graveyard, hand, or library for a card with the same name and put it into play. So there are ways to abuse this. Here again, I haven't built him yet either. Saffi Eriksdotter. Let's see how much commander tax we can pay for Saffi. It's a 2 mana 2/2 that sack it. When target creature is put into your graveyard from play this turn, return it to play. So she's protecting your whatever you're winning with. Sign of the Urdrago. Now this one gave us the Pinnacle Dragon Commander. Well, at least until we got all the others. But this one is amazing. A lot of people love it. Believe it or not, I have had this deck built through the years. I don't currently have one built now. I don't know. It was back in those days I used to take decks apart, but I don't do that now. So the main strategy is you use a ton of dragons and you fill up your graveyard, and you've got dragons to bring them back from the graveyard to play. I have seen many different. I could do an hour-long video on just the different ways to build this commander, but it's really good. Stonebrow is my Centaur commander for Tribal Centaurs. 5 mana, 4/4 trample. Whenever creature you control with trample attacks, it gets +2/+2. Of course, you play Primal Rage, and your team does. Chromatic Star. Now, this one is in here just because of what the foil has done lately. I don't know what's up with it, but y'all, if you care about the MTG finance thing at all, go look up a full Chromatic Star and tell me what's going on. There was a cycle of totems for each color. The totem was 3 mana, and it made a mana of that color. Now, also, it became you could spend mana to make it pretty much an iconic creature of that color's history. Like this turned into Chronotalk. The other ones did the same thing. Gauntlet of Power. Now, this one became a staple instantly. God, I hate the word staple. I do. Not every deck wants it. And that's why I don't like the word staple. I think every commander wants different things, even similar ones. But Gauntlet of Power is solid in monocolor decks. I mean, it just really is. It's pump, and it's mana. Yeah, it's good. Hivestone. Yeah. So if you just want to have elves or demons or dragons and play your sliver that says they all gain shadow, sounds cool. Lotus Bloom is the Suspend Black Lotus. Now, there was a promo version of this for the pre-release, and it's exactly a Black Lotus. You sack it, tap sack to get 3 mana of any one color, but you got to suspend it for 3 turns. Yeah. Prismatic Lens. 2 mana rocks are just an amazing thing. I use more and more now. Here lately, I've been using a lot of the 3 mana guild ones because, let's face it, we've been in Ravnica now for, I don't know, a while. And I've been building a lot of 2-color decks because that's what they're giving us. Oh, almost missed the Stuffy Doll. Stuffy Doll is really funny because this particular doll was shown in a lot of art in the original first couple of sets. And Stuffy Doll, for 5 mana, it's 0/1 indestructible, and the Poochie just came in the room. I gotta close the door. Whenever damage is dealt Stuffy Doll, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. Yes, everybody loves Starve Extinction. Blasphemous act. Back in the day, all we had was like Earthquake. This makes a great blocker. When the player you've named is dead, you just bounce it and cast it to another player. It's awesome. Academy Ruins is one of my favorite lands ever printed. Oh my gosh. Doesn't come into play tapped. I feel like if they made this nowadays, it would have come into play tapped. It taps for a generic, and you spend 2 mana and tap it to put Mindslaver from your graveyard on top of your library. Or, target artifact from your graveyard on top of your library, which most of the time is Mindslaver. Or something else that goes boom and wins games. Flagstones of Trokar, I wanted to talk about because of this suffered hard from the Legend rule. The Legend rule has changed many times through the years. And when Flagstones of Trokar came out, as soon as you had 2, they were both sacrificed. You didn't get to pick and keep one. They were both sacrificed, and you went and got, 2 duels. Gemstone Caverns is a card that the wall attacks there. If it's in your opening hand and you're not playing first, it ley lines itself into play, but you got to exile another card from your hand, and it taps for any color mana at that point. Now, there's a lot of speculation on this particular card with the London Mulligan rule. I don't know that will apply to us in Commander, but it may, because we play a game with a lot of house rules, so a lot of your LGSs or houses may adopt that rule. I don't know. I would suggest playing with it, seeing if you like it, and talk about it. Kerr Keep. I just love the fact that it makes kobolds. Yeah. Period. Swarmyard. This is kind of a throwback to Elephant Graveyard from way back. You can tap to regenerate insect, rat, spider, squirrel. I've got it in Tribal Spiders. Ishkanai is rocking it. I don't know that I have any for the Tribal Rat deck. I haven't built squirrels or insects yet, so. Terramorphic Expanse. Yes, this was the set that gave us Terramorphic first, which I use Terramorphic in a lot of the 2-color and more decks. However, I have been known to use it in single-color decks, especially the Black Vampire deck, where you want the top card of your library to be black, and then if it's a land, you just shuffle up your Terramorphic or whatever. Urza's Factory is a lot of mana for a 2/2 assembly worker, but there are times when it matters. There are times we have that much mana and we're not doing anything with it, and we can just crank out a blocker. I believe Vesuva is our last card. I always said back then they had an invitational every year, and the winner got to design their own magic card. And I always said, copy land, copy land. My card's going to be a copy land. And then I opened up a Vesuva, and I went, meh, close enough. It's everywhere you've ever been. Why does that sound like a credit card commercial? Anyway, that's what I've got for Time Spiral. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think. But I think we will see y'all tomorrow.